Hello folks, I'm Gordon Brewer, and this is part of my daily routine. I've gone through a lot here lately, and I've been debating whether or not to start this series just on grief, caregiving, and just my journey through it all. I'm a licensed therapist. I'm also happen to be a clergy person in the Episcopal Church. I'm a vocational deacon there. You can look it up. But so I wanted to share with you my story. One of the advantages and disadvantages I have is the curse of knowledge, in that I have a lot of expertise, so to speak, in grief and grief recovery. It's my niche, if you will, as a therapist. One of the things, if you go to my counseling website and look up my profile, you'll see that I'm one of my areas of study is, or one of my areas of expertise is in grief. And so I just wanted to share my experience of all this with folks. Not sure where this blog, sorry with the background noise. With this, I'm just going to make it hopefully little snippets of me reflecting and just sharing my story. So let me start maybe at the beginning, if there is such a thing. My wife, her legal name was Mary, but everybody knew her as Sister. And she got that name from her brother when she was born. And so everybody, all her life, called her Sister, and that's what she preferred. So when I talk about Sister, that's who I mean. Sister and I met in probably the winter of 93 or 92. I can't remember exactly. We started dating. I had just moved to Kingsport, Tennessee, and we kind of connected. We were both on dates with other people, and we showed up at the same place. It was a karaoke thing, but I knew Sister from church, and so we started a conversation and just kind of hit it off. And we also went to lunch one day with the intention of starting a adult singles group at our church, but needless to say, it didn't go any farther than that. But anyway, as relationships progressed, we became closer and learned about each other. Sister was older than me, 7 years. So, I mean, that was kind of weird for me at the time. But as people say, age is just a number. But anyway, we stayed in Kingsport. I was working in the funeral business. Again, there's another area of expertise. Working in the funeral business, and worked at funeral homes and was a funeral director and embalmer and all that kind of stuff. So here I am talking about grief. But anyway, to make a long story shorter, we had our daughter, Rebecca. We got married in 1994. Our daughter, Rebecca, was born in 1996. And our life was good. I was working, she was working. I changed careers around 2001 and became a therapist. Had gone back to graduate school and had started that work and went to work for an agency. But about the time that I decided to leave the agency work and go into private practice, and also it coincided with my ordination into the Episcopal Church, Sister was diagnosed with breast cancer. and can't remember the exact term for it, but it was a triple negative breast cancer, which was a very aggressive form of breast cancer. It only had like a 5-year life expectancy with that diagnosis. So my daughter was going into high school. I had left my job at the agency, had started a new part-time job as the coordinator for Episcopal Appalachian Ministries, and also started my private practice, which in my own perspective, sorry I'm going up a hill here, really happened at a good time, if you could say, because I was free to be able to take care of her and help her go through her treatments and her surgeries and all of those kinds of things. And so she did well with all that stuff. I guess you could say chemo sucks. I wouldn't want that on anybody. She also went through radiation treatment. And then in 2015, they discovered she had a brain tumor. The breast cancer had metastasized to her brain. So again, this is at the 5-year mark after her first diagnosis in 2010. And so needless to say, we thought that was it. But they were able to remove the tumor. It was located on the surface of the brain. And then she, after that, did the surgery. She went through more radiation treatment. The decision at the time was to do full brain or whole brain radiation. And looking back, maybe I would have made, or we would have made a different decision, but one of the side effects or downsides of whole brain radiation is it does cause the brain to start to atrophy. And so in her journey with cancer, a few more years passed, and she had some, on her scans, they discovered some hot spots, as they called them, under her sternum. Don't know for sure if it was cancer, but probably was. So more radiation on that. Found some in her lymph nodes. She had surgery for that and more radiation. I couldn't tell you now how many radiation treatments she had. But as one of her doctors pointed out, we're playing whack-a-mole with this stuff. And that's truly what it was. Then, probably around 2020, around the time COVID hit, things were really starting to go downhill for her. She was no longer able to walk, really. She could walk a little bit with a walker, but really she became pretty much wheelchair bound because her brain couldn't tell her feet to move. And so we started that process. Unfortunately, we had made the decision to buy a long-term care policy, which enabled us to hire independent caregivers to come stay with her during the day. And that was a godsend, and I would recommend to anyone, particularly if you're in your 30s and 40s or even earlier, to go ahead and invest in a long-term care policy, because I don't know what our journey would have been like without that. But anyway, we started that. Caregivers came. I went through a few different ones, but finally I met Ashley, who we connected on Facebook. She was looking for a job. She just had a baby. And I'll say more about Ashley later, but she became a very significant person in this whole journey. And then later Sharon, we hired Sharon, and so they were working on alternating schedules over the last 3 years, I guess. And so things continued to progress with Sister, and eventually, she could no longer walk, had to have assistance with everything. Eventually got to the place where she couldn't even feed herself. And just seeing all of that deterioration is grief in and of itself. And I was going to say, as I share these things, there will be times that I will get emotional. But as things progressed, in October of this year, in 2023, it got to where she really could not even get out of the bed. So we had already thought about this. We moved her bed downstairs. We're in a 2-story house, into our living room, to where we could have easier access to her and more room for hospital equipment and all the things that were needed at that point. But as time passed, in October, she continued to deteriorate. Her dementia got really bad in that she stayed confused. And I know it was frightening for her. And that's what breaks my heart. And then I know she was scared at times. And I didn't want her to be. But we made it through that and eventually got to where she became unresponsive. And I thank God for hospice. Hospice got involved back in June of this year. And they were wonderful in helping me care for her. But sister passed away on November 22nd at home. Me and my daughter were with her. And other than, and I'll talk about this later, just as a preparation for people, talk about what it's like to be with someone when they're dying. Because I think most people don't really realize what's involved in that. And she did die peacefully. She just faded away. And we had her funeral on December 2nd of this year, 2023. So, needless to say, as I'm recording this on December the 10th, I'm going through the grieving process. And I think for a lot of us, particularly as men, we are kind of taught to suppress those feelings, and people say stupid things. Well, how are you doing? They're not stupid things. People generally care. But there's no answer to that. And I guess my answer to most of it is just I'm doing. And going through the motions, trying to figure out a new routine. And the nature of grief is that it comes in waves. Just like what just happened to me. It hits, and we don't know when it's going to hit. And usually it's over some little thing, maybe finding some little object in the house, or finding some sort of thing that's a remembrance. I went on Friday night to hear a band that we had listened to a lot, live music. Shout out for Donnie and the Dry Heavers. But anyway, there's a whole backstory with them and us, and again, a wave hit. Listening to some music that was great music, and it was uplifting music, but again, that's the nature of grief. And so, thank you for being with me on this journey. I want to share more. Hopefully the quality of these videos aren't too bad. And my plan is to reflect and share on these morning walks, because that's been part of my routine and my own self-care over the last 5 or 6 years, just in helping me move through this time and period in my life, season in my life. But thanks for listening, and not sure what format you're getting this in, but thank you for being with me on this journey, even if it's just listening. And hope to share more. Take care.